The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was always cold. Ambassador Kyung-min pulled his dark coat tighter as he walked through the massive doors. The ceiling stretched high above him, covered in stars that showed the location of every known world in the galaxy. Today, those stars seemed to shine with an angry light. Kyung-min had been Earth's voice in this place for 10 years. He had seen many fights between different alien races. He had helped solve problems with words instead of weapons. But today felt different. Today, the air was thick with the smell of coming war. General Tae-ho walked beside him. The old soldier's face was calm, but his eyes were always watching. He had fought in 3 wars before humans even knew aliens existed. Now, at 65 years old, he hoped he would never have to fight again. But hope and reality were often very different things. "The Scarids are already here," Tae-ho said quietly. He pointed to a group of tall, green-scaled beings standing near the center of the hall. Their leader, High Counselor Vexatar, was easy to spot. He was bigger than the others and wore bright red armor that caught the light from the artificial stars above. Kyung-min nodded. "I see them, and I see they brought twice as many guards as usual." "That's not a good sign," Tae-ho replied. They took their seats in the section marked for Earth. Around them, hundreds of other beings filled the hall. Some looked almost human, while others were so strange that Kyung-min still felt surprised after all these years. There were the blue-skinned Zephyrians with their 4 arms, the rock-like granite folk who moved slowly but spoke with deep, rumbling voices, the crystalline beings who seemed to be made of living glass and light. Elder Nari was the oldest of the crystalline beings. She had been alive for over 3,000 years and had seen the rise and fall of many civilizations. Her voice always carried the weight of history when she spoke. Today, she sat in her special place at the front of the hall, her crystal body glowing with a soft blue light. The council meeting began when a low bell rang 3 times. The sound echoed through the hall until everything was quiet. Then the main speaker, a tall being with purple skin and silver eyes, stood up. "We are here today to discuss the territorial dispute between the Scarid Empire and the human colonies in the Outer Rim," the speaker announced. His voice was translated into every language in the galaxy by machines built into each seat. High Counselor Vextar stood up immediately. His green scales caught the light as he moved. "There is no dispute," he said, his voice loud and angry. "The humans have built their colonies in space that belongs to the Scarid Empire. They must leave, or we will make them leave." Kyung-min rose slowly from his seat. He had learned long ago that quick movements and loud voices never solved problems. "Honored Council," he began, "the human colonies in the Outer Rim were built on empty worlds. We sent messages to all known governments before we began building. No one claimed those worlds. No one said we could not use them. No one claimed them because they were ours by right of conquest." Vextar's voice boomed across the hall. "My ancestors fought and died for control of that space 200 years ago. Just because we did not put colonies there does not mean they are free for taking." General Tae-ho leaned forward in his seat. Kyung-min could feel the old soldier's anger, but Tae-ho stayed quiet. That was their agreement. Kyung-min would handle the talking. Tae-ho would only speak if asked. "Honored Counselor Vextar," Kyung-min said, keeping his voice calm and respectful. "We have studied the history of that region. The Scarid Empire fought the Hegemony Alliance there 2 centuries ago. But both sides agreed to leave those worlds empty after the war ended. The peace treaty was signed right here in this hall. We have copies of the documents." Vextar's yellow eyes flashed with anger. "Treaties can be changed. Circumstances can be changed. Those worlds are strategically important to the security of the Scarid Empire. We cannot allow human colonies to remain there." Elder Nari's voice suddenly filled the hall. When the ancient crystalline being spoke, everyone listened. "High Counselor Vexatar," she said, her voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "May, I remind you that the human colonies have been peaceful since they were established. They have not built weapons. They have not threatened anyone. They grow food and study the stars. Why do you fear farmers and scientists?" Vextar turned to face Elder Nari. For a moment, Kyungmin thought the scaried leader might show respect for the ancient being. Instead, Vextar's voice became even more harsh. "You speak of farmers and scientists, Elder Nari, but I see soldiers and spies. The humans may seem peaceful now, but they are gathering strength in our territory. Soon they will have enough power to threaten the Scarid Empire. We will not allow this to happen." "What evidence do you have of this?" asked the purple-skinned speaker. Vextar was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I do not need evidence of what I can see with my own eyes. Humans are ambitious. They spread across space like a disease. First one colony, then 10, then 100. Before we know it, they will surround our empire and demand that we surrender to them." Kyungmin stood again. "Counselor Vexatar, the human race has never attacked another species without being attacked first. We believe in peace. We believe in trade and friendship between different worlds. Our colonies exist to give humans new places to live and work, not to threaten anyone." "Words," Vexatar said with a sound like a snake hissing. "All species say they want peace when they are weak. When they become strong, they remember that they want power instead." Elder Nari's light grew brighter. When she spoke this time, her voice carried a warning that made everyone in the hall pay attention. "High Counselor Vextar," she said slowly, "I have lived for 3,000 years. I have seen many species rise and fall. I have watched wars that destroyed entire star systems. Let me share some wisdom with you." The hall became completely quiet. Even Vextar seemed to be listening. "The humans appear weak because they choose restraint," Elder Nari continued. "They could have built weapons that would make your empire tremble. They could have sent war fleets to claim territory by force. Instead, they send farmers and scientists. They send diplomats who speak of peace and trade." She paused, and her crystal body pulsed with soft light. "Do not mistake mercy for weakness, High Counselor. Do not think that because the humans choose peace, they are unable to choose war. Some species are dangerous when they are angry. Humans are dangerous when they decide they have no other choice." Vextar laughed. It was a cold, ugly sound. "You speak of humans as if they are gods of war, Elder Nari. But I see only soft-skinned prey. Their colonies have no weapons. Their people run from conflict. They send ambassadors to beg for peace instead of warriors to demand respect. The Scarid Empire fears no one, least of all a species that fears its own shadow." General Tae-ho finally spoke. His voice was quiet, but it carried clearly across the hall. "Counselor Vextar, may I ask you a question?" Vextar looked at the human general with interest. "You may ask. Have you ever seen what happens when humans decide that talking will not work?" For a moment, Vextar seemed uncertain. Then his confidence returned. "I have heard stories, but stories are just words. The Scarid Empire deals in actions, not words." Tae-ho nodded slowly. "Then I hope you never have to learn the difference between stories and reality." The council session continued for several more hours. They discussed trade routes and mining rights. They talked about border agreements and communication protocols. But everyone in the hall could feel that the real discussion was already over. The Scarids wanted the human colonies gone. The humans would not leave voluntarily. When the session finally ended, no agreement had been reached. The speaker announced that they would meet again in 30 days to continue discussions. But Kyungmin could see in Vextar's yellow eyes that the Scarid leader had no intention of waiting 30 days. As the aliens began to leave the hall, Elder Nari approached the human delegation. Her crystal form moved with surprising grace for something that looked like living stone. "Ambassador Kyungmin," she said, "I fear that my words today fell on deaf ears. You tried, Elder Nari. Sometimes that is all anyone can do. Yes, she replied, her light dimming with sadness. But I have lived long enough to know when someone has already decided to start a war. High Counselor Vextar made his choice before. He entered this hall today. General Tai-Ho stepped closer. What do you think he will do? Elder Nari was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was filled with ancient sorrow. He will attack one of your colonies. He will do it quickly and without warning. He believes this will show other species that humans are weak and cannot protect themselves. And what do you think will happen after that? Kyung-min asked. Elder Nari's crystal body pulsed with red light. Then the galaxy will learn what I tried to tell the Council today. The humans are peaceful by choice, not by nature. And once that choice is taken away from them... She did not finish the sentence. As they left the council hall, Kyung-min felt a cold fear growing in his chest. He had spent 10 years building peace between humans and aliens, but some people only understood the language of violence. If Vextar was determined to speak that language, then humans would have to learn how to answer him. Dr. So-young woke up before dawn, just like she had every day for the past 5 years. The small sun of New Seoul was still hidden behind the mountains, but she could see the first light beginning to touch the sky. She loved this time of morning when the world was quiet and peaceful. New Seoul was not a large colony. 50,000 people had made this world their home. They grew food in the rich soil and studied the strange plants that grew naturally here. Some people raised animals that had been brought from Earth. Others worked in the small factories that made tools and machines the colony needed. So-young was the colony's chief medical officer. She ran the main hospital and supervised the smaller medical centers in the farming areas outside the main city. It was good work, and she felt proud that she could help keep people healthy and safe. She made coffee and stood by her kitchen window, looking out at the sleeping city. The houses were built in the style of old Korea, with curved roofs and wooden walls. But they also had modern technology like force fields to keep out bad weather and communication systems that could reach Earth in just a few hours. Her morning was interrupted by a sound she had never heard before. It was deep and rumbling like thunder, but it came from above instead of from storm clouds. She looked up and saw lights moving across the dark sky. At first, she thought they might be meteors or maybe supply ships arriving early. Then the lights began to grow larger and brighter. So-young realized with growing fear that these were not friendly ships. She ran to her communication device and called Mayor Jin-woo. The mayor's face appeared on the screen, and she could see he was already awake and worried. "Dr. So-young, are you seeing this?" he asked. "Yes. What are those ships? Are they from Earth?" "No," Jin-woo said, his voice tight with fear. "I've been trying to contact them for the past 10 minutes. They're not responding to any of our signals. And doctor, there are dozens of them." Mayor Jin-woo had been a soldier on Earth before he became a colonial administrator. He knew the difference between peaceful ships and warships. These were definitely warships. "What should we do?" So-young asked. "I'm going to try to surrender," Jin-woo said. "Maybe they just want to take control of the colony. Maybe they don't want to hurt anyone. I'll get to the hospital and prepare for whatever happens," So-young said. She dressed quickly and ran through the empty streets toward the hospital. Other people were beginning to come out of their houses, looking up at the growing lights in the sky. Children pointed at the pretty lights while their parents pulled them back inside. Captain Dong-hyun was already at the hospital when So-young arrived. He was the leader of the colony's small defense force, 20 men and women with basic weapons and 1 old patrol ship. They were meant to deal with wild animals and small accidents, not with alien war fleets. "Doctor, we need to prepare for the worst," Dong-hyun said. His young face was pale but determined. "Those ships up there, they're not here to talk." "How do you know?" "Because they're not answering our surrender signals. Mayor Jinwoo has been broadcasting on every frequency. We know. He's told them we're a peaceful colony with no weapons. He's offered to surrender completely. They're not even listening. So, Young felt her stomach drop. What does that mean? It means they're not here to conquer us. They're here to destroy us. As if his words had been a signal, the sky suddenly filled with light. Beams of energy shot down from the alien ships toward the city below. The first beam hit the communication center, turning it into a ball of fire and smoke. The second beam destroyed the small spaceport where the colony's few ships were kept. The sound was incredible. Not just loud, but so powerful that So Young could feel it in her bones. The ground shook under her feet. Windows all around the city began to break. "Get everyone into the basement!" Dong-hyun shouted over the noise. "Move! Now!" So Young began, helping to move patients from the upper floors of the hospital down to the underground levels. The basement had been built to serve as a shelter during bad storms. She had never imagined it would need to protect people from alien weapons. More energy beams rained down from the sky. So Young could see through the windows as entire city blocks disappeared in balls of fire. The beautiful houses with their curved roofs were burning. The parks where children played were turning into smoking craters. A 12-year-old girl named Hye-jin was brought into the hospital by her crying mother. The girl had been hurt when their house collapsed, but not badly. So Young bandaged the cut on Hye-jin's arm while the girl stared at the ceiling with wide, frightened eyes. "Why are they doing this to us?" Hye-jin asked. "We never hurt anyone." So Young did not know what to say. She had no answer that would make sense to a child. She had no answer that made sense to herself. "I don't know, sweetheart," she said finally, "but we're going to keep you safe." The bombing continued for 2 hours. When it finally stopped, the silence was almost worse than the noise had been. So Young could hear people crying and calling for help, but the sound seemed small and lost in the huge quiet. Captain Dong-hyun came down to the basement. His uniform was torn and dirty, and there was blood on his face. "Doctor, they're landing," he said. "Landing? Here. All over the colony. Hundreds of ships. Maybe thousands. What do they want? There's nothing left to destroy." Dong-hyun's face was grim. "I think they want to hunt the survivors." So Young felt cold fear run through her body. "Hunt? What do you mean?" "I mean, I think this is sport for them. I think they destroyed our city for fun, and now they want to hunt down everyone who's still alive." Young Hye-jin was sitting nearby, listening to every word. So Young saw the terror in the girl's eyes and tried to think of something comforting to say. But before she could speak, they heard new sounds from outside. Heavy footsteps. Strange. Voices speaking in a language none of them had ever heard, and then the sound of weapons firing. "They're killing the wounded," Dong-hyun whispered. "The people who were hurt in the bombing. They're going through the ruins and killing anyone they find." So Young realized that their hospital basement was not going to be safe for long. The aliens would search every building. They would find everyone who was hiding. "Is there another way out?" she asked. Dong-hyun nodded. "There are maintenance tunnels that connect to the old mining system. They go deep underground and come out several miles away from the city. Can we get everyone through the tunnels? Some of them. The people who can walk. But the seriously injured..." He did not finish the sentence. So Young understood. They would have to leave behind the people who could not walk or move quickly. They would have to choose who lived and who died. "I'm not leaving my patients," she said. "Doctor, if you stay here, you'll die. And then you won't be able to help anyone." So Young looked around the basement at the frightened faces. There were 30 people here. 10 of them were too badly hurt to walk. 20 might be able to make it through the tunnels. She made the hardest decision of her life. "Take the ones who can walk," she said to Dong-hyun. "Get them to safety. I'll stay with the others." "Doctor, no." "Yes. Someone has to stay with them." Someone has to be here when the aliens find us. Heejin grabbed So-young's hand. I want to stay with you, the girl said. No, sweetheart. You're going to go with Captain Dong-hyun. You're going to be brave and strong, and you're going to survive this. But what about you? So-young smiled even though her heart was breaking. I'm going to take care of the people who can't walk. That's my job. Dong-hyun gathered the people who could move. 20 frightened colonists, including young Hyejin, followed him toward the maintenance tunnels. Hyejin looked back one last time before she disappeared into the darkness. So-young was left with 10 injured people and the sound of alien voices getting closer. She did not have to wait long. The hospital doors burst open about an hour after the others had escaped. The aliens who came in were tall and covered in green scales, just like the descriptions she had heard of the Scarred Empire. But seeing them in person was much more frightening than any description. They were carrying weapons that looked like they could cut through metal. Their yellow eyes seemed to glow in the dim light of the basement. And when they saw the humans, lying on stretchers and beds, they began to make a sound that might have been laughter. The leader of the group was bigger than the others. He spoke in the Scarred language, and his voice sounded amused. So-young did not understand the words, but she understood the tone. These aliens thought that hunting helpless humans was funny. So-young stood up and faced the Scarred leader. She was terrified, but she was also angry. These people had done nothing wrong. They had never hurt anyone. They did not deserve this. You will not touch my patients, she said in a clear, strong voice. The Scarred leader looked at her with interest. He said something to his soldiers, and they all made that laughing sound again. Then he raised his weapon and pointed it at So-young. She did not close her eyes. She wanted to face her death with dignity. She wanted these monsters to see that humans were not afraid, even at the end. But the weapon did not fire immediately. The Scarred leader seemed to be enjoying her fear. He said something else to his soldiers, and they began to move toward the injured people. No! So-young shouted. She threw herself between the aliens and her patients. This time, the Scarred leader did fire his weapon. President Boram was in her office when the first reports from New Seoul arrived. She had been reading budget reports and signing papers, the normal work of running Earth's government. Then her aide rushed in with a look of pure horror on his face. Madam President, he said, his voice shaking. We're getting emergency signals from New Seoul Colony. Boram looked up from her papers. What kind of emergency? Equipment failure? Natural disaster? No, ma'am. Attack. The colony is under attack. The words did not make sense at first. New Seoul was a peaceful farming colony. Who would attack farmers? And why? Attack by whom? She asked. We don't know yet. The signals are broken and hard to understand. But, ma'am, it looks like the entire colony is being destroyed. Boram stood up immediately. She had been president of Earth for 6 years, and she had dealt with many crises. Earthquakes, floods, economic problems, political disputes. But this was different. This was something she had hoped would never happen. Get me Admiral Wu Jin, she said. Right now. Admiral Wu Jin was the head of Earth's Space Navy. He was a careful, thoughtful man who had spent his whole life preparing for a war he hoped would never come. When his face appeared on Boram's communication screen, she could see that he had already heard the news. Madam President, he said, our nearest ships are 6 hours away from New Seoul. By the time they arrive, I know, Boram said. Just get them there as fast as possible. And Admiral, send everything we have in that region. If our people are under attack, I want them to know that help is coming. But they both knew that help would arrive too late. Over. The next few hours, the reports from New Seoul became worse and worse. The first ship to reach the colony sent back images that made Boram feel sick to her stomach. The beautiful city was gone. The farms were burning. And everywhere there were bodies. How many? she asked Admiral Wu Jin when he came to her office. In person. Early estimates suggest that 47,000 people are dead, he said quietly. We've found about 3,000 survivors so far. Boram sat down heavily in her chair. 47,000 people. Farmers, teachers, doctors, children, all dead. Who did this? The survivors say it was the Scarab Empire. They identified the ships and the soldiers. It matches what our intelligence services know about Scarab military equipment. Why? New Sol. Never threatened anyone. They were growing food and studying plants. Admiral Wu Jin's face was grim. According to the survivors, it was a demonstration. The Scarids wanted to show the galaxy that humans are weak and can't protect themselves. Boram felt something cold and hard growing in her chest. It was not fear. It was not sadness. It was anger, but anger like she had never felt before. Get me General Seung-ho, she said, and call an emergency meeting of the High Command, everyone, right now. Within 2 hours, Earth's most important military leaders were gathered in the secure conference room beneath the President's building. Admiral Wu Jin was there, along with General Seung-ho, who commanded the Marine Forces. There was also Admiral Min-ho, who ran intelligence services, and General Su Jin, who was in charge of planetary defense. Ambassador Kyung-min had also been called back from the Galactic Council. He looked tired and worried as he took his seat at the table. Report, Boram said simply. Ambassador Kyung-min spoke first. The attack came exactly 12 hours after the council meeting ended. High Counselor Vextar had clearly planned this, before he even came to negotiate. The whole discussion about territorial disputes was just a show. What's the reaction from other species? General Seung-ho asked. Mixed, Kyung-min replied. Some are calling it a tragedy and demanding action from the council. Others are saying it's a local dispute that doesn't concern them. A few are actually supporting the Scarids, saying that humans were expanding too quickly and needed to be stopped. Admiral Wu Jin leaned forward. What about military response? Are any of the other species willing to help us? No, Kyung-min said sadly. They're all very concerned, but none of them want to fight the Scarab Empire over a human colony. They're offering to mediate talks, but they won't commit military forces. The room was quiet for a moment. Boram could see the anger on every face around the table. These people had dedicated their lives to protecting Earth and her colonies. Now they were being told that no one else in the galaxy cared when humans were murdered. What are our options? Boram asked. General Seung-ho spoke up. We can file a formal complaint with the Galactic Council. We can demand that they punish the Scarab Empire for unprovoked aggression. And if they refuse? Then we're on our own. Admiral Wu Jin opened a folder full of papers. I've been working on preliminary military assessments. The Scarab Empire has approximately 200 warships and controls 12 star systems. They have about 8 billion people, most of them living on their home world. What do we have? Boram asked. 63 warships and 42 billion people across 15 star systems, so we outnumber them. In people, yes, but their ships are designed for conquest. Ours are designed for defense. In a direct fight, their fleet would probably win. Boram was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Admiral, that assessment assumes we would fight them the way they expect us. To fight. What do you mean, Madam President? I mean the Scarids think war is about conquering territory and controlling planets. They think it's about showing strength and making other people afraid. Boram's voice was getting harder as she spoke. But that's not what this war is going to be about. General Seung-ho leaned forward with interest. What is it going to be about? Justice, Boram said simply. Every single Scarid who participated in the attack on New Sol is going to pay for what they did. Every single one. And they're going to pay for it with their lives. The room was completely quiet. Everyone was staring at the president. Ma'am, Admiral Wu Jin said carefully, are you talking about total war? I'm talking about something more than total war, Bo-Ram replied. Total war is about defeating an enemy's military and conquering their territory. What I'm talking about is making sure that every alien in the galaxy understands that attacking human civilians is the worst mistake they can possibly make. She stood up and walked to the window that looked out over Earth's capital city. Millions of people were down there, going about their daily lives. They were working and playing and raising their children. They thought they were safe because they lived on Earth, far from the frontier colonies. But Bo-Ram knew that safety was an illusion. If the Scarids could destroy New Sol without consequences, then nowhere was truly safe. General Sung-Ho, she said without turning around, how long would it take to mobilize every military unit we have? Every unit, including reserves and planetary defense forces? Everything. 6 months for full mobilization. You have 4 months. Ma'am, that's not possible. Bo-Ram turned around and looked at him. General, 47,000 of our people are dead. Their bodies are lying in the ruins of their homes on New Sol. Some of them are children who were killed for sport. Do not tell me what is not possible. General. Sung-Ho straightened in his chair. Yes, ma'am. 4 months. Admiral Wu Jin, I want every ship we have equipped for long-range operations. Not defense, not patrol. Hunting. Hunting, ma'am. We're going to find every Scarid who was at New Sol. We're going to find every Scarid who gave the orders. We're going to find every Scarid who supported the decision. And we're going to make sure they never hurt anyone again. Ambassador Kyung-min looked worried. Madam President, if we do this, there will be no going back. The other species will see us as aggressive. They might unite against us. Ambassador, let me ask you something. When you were at the council meeting, did any of the other species try to stop Vextar from making threats? No. Did any of them warn us that an attack was coming? No. Did any of them offer to help when the attack happened? No. Then what exactly are we supposed to be afraid of losing? Their friendship? Their cooperation? Bo-Ram's voice was getting louder. They stood by and watched while our people were murdered. Some of them are probably glad it happened. So tell me, Ambassador, what do we owe them? Kyung-min was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Nothing. We owe them nothing. That's right. We owe them nothing. But we owe our dead justice. And we owe our living the promise that this will never happen again. Bo-Ram walked back to her chair and sat down. When she spoke again, her voice was calm and cold. Here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to bring every survivor of New Sol to Earth. They're going to tell their stories to the world. Everyone on Earth is going to see what the Scarids did to our people. She looked around the table at each person. Second, we're going to give the Galactic Council one chance to deliver justice. We're going to demand that they arrest every Scarid who participated in the attack and put them on trial for murder. And when they refuse, Admiral Wu Jin asked, then we're going to do it ourselves. 3 days later, the survivors of New Sol arrived on Earth. Among them was a 12-year-old girl named Hye Jin. Her parents were dead. Her house was gone. Her whole world had been destroyed. But she remembered everything. Bo-Ram met with Hye Jin in private before the girl was scheduled to speak to the world. Fleet Admiral Jae-sung stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars through the massive viewing window. His fleet of 30 ships hung in space like sleeping giants, but he knew they were anything but sleeping. Every sensor was active. Every weapon was ready. Every crew member was alert and waiting. They had been hunting the Scarid fleet for 6 months now. 6 months of following trails through space, checking every asteroid field and every hidden moon where enemy ships might hide. 6 months of patient, careful work that was slowly driving the Scarids crazy with fear. Admiral, Lieutenant Mi-young, called from her station. We're getting a signal from one of our scout ships. They found something. Jae-sung walked over to her station. Mi-young was the best intelligence officer in the human fleet. If she said they had found something, it was probably important. What do we have? 3 Scarred destroyers hiding in the Kepler asteroid field. The scout ship has been watching them for 2 hours. The Scarrids think they're safe. Are these ships from the New Sol attack? Mi-Young checked her computer. Every Scarred ship that had participated in the massacre was listed in their database. The humans had identified them all from the recordings made by hidden cameras during the attack. Yes, sir. All 3 ships were there. The destroyer Venom Strike was one of the first ships to begin bombing the city. Jae-sung felt the familiar cold anger settle in his chest. He had felt it every day since the war began. It was not the hot, explosive anger that made people do stupid things. It was the cold, patient anger that made people do terrible things. Very efficiently. "Signal the fleet," he said. "We're going hunting." The human ships moved through space like sharks smelling blood. They did not rush. They did not make noise. They simply moved with deadly purpose toward their prey. The Scarred ships never saw them coming. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it was over, 2 of the Scarred destroyers were floating wreckage. The 3rd ship was disabled, but intact. Jae-sung had ordered it captured, not destroyed. "Admiral," Commander Hyun-woo called from his battleship Vengeance. "The Scarred ship is secure. We've taken 47 prisoners." "Any of them senior officers?" "Yes, sir. We have the ship's captain and 3 other officers." "Good. Have them transferred to my ship. I want to speak with them personally." An hour later, Jae-sung stood in the interrogation room facing 4 Scarred prisoners. They were still wearing their green-scaled armor, but now they had human chains around their wrists and ankles. The armor that had once made them feel powerful now just made them look like defeated monsters. The captain was the largest of the 4. His yellow eyes tried to show defiance, but Jae-sung could see the fear underneath. "Good. The Scarred should be afraid. I am Fleet Admiral Jae-sung of the Human Space Navy," he said in perfect Scarred language. "You are Captain Grixtar of the destroyer Venom Strike. On June 15th, your ship participated in the unprovoked attack on New Sol Colony." "We were following orders," Grixtar replied. "We are soldiers. We do what our commanders tell us to do." "I see. And did your commanders tell you to hunt human children for sport?" Grixtar's scales changed color slightly. We were told to eliminate all resistance. Children playing in parks are not resistance, Captain. Doctors treating wounded patients are not resistance. Farmers hiding in their basements are not resistance." Jae-sung walked closer to the Scarred captain. When he spoke again, his voice was very quiet and very cold. "You murdered 47,000 innocent people. You did it for fun. You laughed while you did it. Do you remember laughing, Captain?" Grixtar did not answer. "I asked you a question, Captain. Do you remember laughing while you killed human children? What are you going to do with us?" one of the other Scarred officers asked. Jae-sung turned to look at him. "What do you think we should do with you?" "The laws of war require that you treat prisoners humanely," the officer said. "You cannot simply execute us." "Ah, yes. The laws of war." Jae-sung smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "Tell me, officer, which law of war says it's acceptable to bomb hospitals? Which law says you can hunt civilians for entertainment?" The Scarrids were all quiet now. "Here's what's going to happen," Jae-sung said. "You are going to be taken to a human military court. You are going to be put on trial for the murder of 47,000 people. You will be allowed to have lawyers. You will be allowed to present evidence. Everything will be done according to proper legal procedures." The Scarrids looked slightly relieved. "And then," Jae-sung continued, "you are going to be found guilty, because you are guilty, and then you are going to be executed, because that is what happens to people who murder children." "You cannot do this," Captain Grixtar shouted. "We demand to be returned to the Scarred Empire. We demand to be tried by our own courts." "Captain," Jae-sung said calmly, "your empire had the chance to turn you over to face justice. They refused. They said that attacking human colonies was not a crime. So now you belong to us. He turned to the guards. Take them away. Make sure they're comfortable. We want them healthy for their trial. As the scurried prisoners were led away, Jae-sung felt a moment of satisfaction. 4 more of the New Soul murderers had been caught, but there were still hundreds more out there. Hiding in the darkness between stars, the hunt would continue. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, Colonel Young-soo was leading a very different kind of mission. While the fleet hunted Scarab warships, Young-soo and his special forces were hunting individual war criminals who had tried to disappear into civilian populations. He stood on the docking platform of a space station called Haven Port. It was a neutral trading post where dozens of different alien species came to buy and sell goods. It was also a perfect place for war criminals to hide. Target confirmed, Sergeant Tae-min whispered into his communicator. Scarab male. Matches the description of Lieutenant Kexmon from the New Soul attack. He's in the restaurant on level 7. Young-soo checked his weapon and equipment. His team of 6 soldiers was scattered throughout the space station, all dressed like ordinary traders and travelers. No one would suspect they were human military until it was too late. Remember, he said quietly to his team, we want him alive, if possible. The people of New Soul deserve to see him stand trial. And if he resists, asked Corporal Min Jung, then we do what we have to do. Lieutenant Kexmon was sitting at a table in the restaurant, eating strange alien food and trying to look like a peaceful trader. He had removed his military armor and was wearing civilian clothes. He thought he was safe among all the other aliens. He was wrong. Young-soo walked into the restaurant and sat down at the table next to Kexmon. The Scarab looked up nervously but did not seem to recognize the human as a threat. Lieutenant Kexmon of the Scarab Imperial Navy, Young-soo said quietly. You are under arrest for war crimes committed against human civilians on New Soul Colony. Kexmon's yellow eyes went wide with shock. He started to reach for a weapon hidden under his clothes, but Young-soo was faster. The human colonel grabbed the Scarab's wrist and twisted it until Kexmon dropped the weapon. I wouldn't do that if I were you, Young-soo said. My team has this whole restaurant surrounded. Try to run, try to fight, try to call for help, and you'll be dead before you take 2 steps. Other aliens in the restaurant were starting to notice the confrontation. Some of them began to move away from the 2 tables. Others watched with curiosity. You have no authority here, Kexmon hissed. This is a neutral station. You're right, Young-soo replied. We have no authority here, but we have something better. We have determination. 2 more humans appeared at the table. They looked like ordinary travelers, but Kexmon could see the weapons hidden under their clothes. Lieutenant, Young-soo continued, you have 2 choices. You can come with us quietly, and you'll get a fair trial before you're executed. Or you can resist, and you'll die right here in this restaurant. But either way, you're not leaving this station alive unless it's as our prisoner. Kexmon looked around the restaurant desperately. Some of the other aliens were watching, but none of them looked like they wanted to help him. Everyone in the galaxy had heard about New Soul by now. Everyone knew what the Scarabs had done there. How did you find me? He asked. We never stopped looking, Young-soo said simply. Did you think you could murder human children and then just disappear? Did you think we would forget? It was war. No, Lieutenant. War is what's happening now. What you did on New Soul was just murder. Kexmon was quiet for a moment. Then his shoulders slumped in defeat. What kind of trial will I get? The same kind you gave the children you killed. Quick and certain. They took Kexmon away without any trouble. The other aliens in the restaurant watched them go, but no one tried to interfere. Everyone understood that this was human business now. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Wu Jin was studying reports from across the galaxy. Human fleets were hunting scurried ships in dozens of star systems. Human special forces were capturing war criminals on space stations and trading posts. The The Scarred Empire was beginning to realize that the humans meant exactly what they had said. "Admiral," Lieutenant Commander Su Jin called from her station. "We're getting a transmission from the Scurried Homeworld. It's High Counselor Vextar himself." 5 years had passed since the attack on New Sol. The galaxy was a very different place now. President Boram sat in her office, older and grayer than before, but her eyes still held the same cold determination that had defined the war. On her desk was a report from Captain Sung Min, who commanded the orbital monitoring stations around the Scarred reservation worlds. The Scarred Empire no longer existed. In its place were 12 small worlds, where the surviving Scarids lived under constant human supervision. They were not prisoners exactly, but they were not free either. They could live their lives, work their jobs, and raise their families. But they could never leave their assigned planets, and they could never forget that human eyes were always watching them. "Madam President," her aide announced, "Ambassador Jun Ho is here for his briefing." Jun Ho had replaced Ambassador Kyung Min 2 years ago. Kyung Min had died of a heart attack while watching the trial of the last New Sol war criminals. Some said the stress of the war had killed him. Others said he had simply died of a broken heart, knowing that his years of peaceful diplomacy had ended in such terrible failure. "Send him in," Boram said. Jun Ho entered the office carrying a folder full of papers. He was younger than Kyung Min had been, but the years of managing humanity's new relationships with alien species had aged him quickly. "Madam President," he said, "I have the monthly reports from the Galactic Council. How are our alien friends doing?" There was no humor in Boram's voice when she said the word friends. Everyone understood that humanity's relationship with other species had changed permanently after New Sol. "The Council is functioning normally," Jun Ho reported. "Trade continues between most species. There have been no major conflicts in the past 6 months. And what do they think of us?" Jun Ho was quiet for a moment. "They're afraid of us, Madam President." "All of them." "Good. Ma'am, some of the newer council members are suggesting that maybe it's time to relax some of our policies. They think 5 years is long enough to maintain the current level of monitoring and control." Boram looked at him with eyes that had not gotten softer with time. "Ambassador, do you think 5 years is long enough?" "Ma'am, I think the point has been made. Everyone in the galaxy understands that attacking human civilians carries severe consequences." "Everyone? Are you sure about that?" Jun Ho hesitated. "Ma'am." "Ambassador, yesterday I received a report about a new species that just joined the Galactic Council, the Helix Federation. They're aggressive, militaristic, and they've been making noise about human colonies being too close to their territory. Does that sound familiar to you?" "Yes, ma'am. It sounds very much like what the Scarids were saying 5 years ago." "Exactly. So tell me, Ambassador, if we relax our policies and show mercy to the Scarids, what message does that send to the Helix Federation?" Jun Ho understood immediately. "It tells them that human anger eventually fades. It tells them that if they wait long enough, they can attack us without permanent consequences." "Correct. And what happens then?" "Another New Sol." Boram stood up and walked to her window. The city below was thriving. Children played in parks. Families walked safely down the streets. But Boram knew that safety was not natural. Safety was something that had to be earned and maintained every single day. "Ambassador, bring me the file on adult Hyajin." Jun Ho opened his folder and pulled out a thick file. Hyajin was now 17 years old. She worked for the Human Government's Department of Galactic Affairs, maintaining the memorial database of New Sol victims. She remembered every name, every face, every story. "How is she doing?" Boram asked. "Very well, Madam President. She's become one of our most effective advocates for maintaining current policies. When new council members suggest that we're being too harsh on the Scarids, we have Haya Jin speak to them about what she saw on New Sol. And how do they react?" "They usually stop suggesting that we're being too harsh." Boram nodded. "Haya Jin. had become the living memory of why the current system existed. As long as she was alive to tell her story, no one could pretend that the Scarred attack had been a minor incident or an unfortunate misunderstanding. What about Captain Sung-min's report? Junho found the right paper. All Scarred monitoring. Stations are operating normally. No unauthorized movement off the reservation worlds. No attempts to build weapons or communication devices that could reach outside their star systems. Any attempts to escape? 3 this month. All were detected and stopped before the individuals could leave their planets. What happened to them? They disappeared, as per standard protocol. Bo-Ram was quiet for a moment. The disappearing of Scarids who tried to leave their reservation worlds was not officially a human government policy. Officially, the human government simply maintained monitoring stations and prevented unauthorized travel. What happened to individuals who tried to break the rules was never discussed in official reports, but everyone knew. Every Scarid who tried to escape the reservation worlds simply vanished. They were never seen again. Their families never learned what happened to them. The message was clear. The boundaries of the Scarid reservation worlds were absolute. Any complaints from the other species about our monitoring policies? A few, Junho admitted. The Crystalline Council thinks we're being too harsh. They say that punishing an entire species for the crimes of some individuals is against galactic law. What did you tell them? I told them that we're not punishing the Scarid species. We're simply ensuring that the individuals who committed murder can never escape justice. And how did they respond? Elder Nari said that most of the war criminals are already dead. She asked how long we plan to maintain the monitoring system. Bo-Ram turned around and looked at Junho. What did you tell her? I told her we plan to maintain it forever. Good answer. There was a knock on the office door. Bo-Ram's aide entered with a communication device. Madam President, he said, we're getting an urgent transmission from the Helix Federation. They're demanding an immediate audience with you. Bo-Ram and Junho exchanged glances. This was exactly what they had been expecting. Put them through, Bo-Ram said. The wall screen activated, showing the face of an alien that looked like a cross between a giant insect and a lizard. Its compound eyes glittered with anger, and its mandibles clicked as it spoke. President Bo-Ram of Earth, it said in a harsh, buzzing voice. I am War Master Zixthul of the Helix Federation. We demand that you remove your colonies from the Kepler sector immediately. Bo-Ram sat down calmly and looked at the alien with no expression on her face. War Master Zixthul, the human colonies in the Kepler sector were established legally and with proper notification to all known governments. We have no intention of removing them. The Kepler sector is strategically important to Helix security. We cannot allow alien colonies to remain there. I see. And what do you plan to do about it? Zixthul's mandibles clicked more rapidly. If you do not remove your colonies voluntarily, the Helix Federation will remove them by force. The office was completely quiet for a moment. Bo-Ram could hear her own heartbeat. Then she spoke, and her voice was very soft and very cold. War Master Zixthul, before you make any decisions about attacking human colonies, I suggest you speak with the other species in the Galactic Council. Ask them about a place called New Sol. Ask them what happened to the last aliens who attacked human civilians. I do not need to ask anyone anything, Zixthul buzzed angrily. The Helix Federation fears no one. I see. In that case, War Master, let me give you some free advice. If you attack our colonies, we will not try to conquer your empire. We will not try to negotiate with your government. We will not accept your surrender. What will you do? We will hunt down every individual who participates in the attack. We will find them no matter where they hide. We will put them on trial for murder, and then we will execute them. You cannot threaten the Helix Federation. I'm not threatening you, War Master. I'm explaining our policy. It's the same policy we've had for 5 years, the same policy that is posted in every language in the Galactic Council chambers. Bo-Ram stood up and walked closer to the screen. Attack human civilians, and you will spend the rest of your life running from human justice. And when we catch you, not if, when, you will die for your crimes. This is outrageous. You cannot simply execute foreign nationals. War Master, the Scarid Empire said the same thing. Would you like to ask High Counselor Vextar how that worked out for him? Zixthul's compound eyes flickered with uncertainty. Vextar is... He is still alive? Oh yes, he's alive. He's living on Scarid, Reservation World number 1. He spends his days working in a factory that makes farming equipment. He spends his nights knowing that he will never leave that planet, never see the rest of the galaxy again, and never forget that he is responsible for the destruction of his entire empire. But he's alive? Of course. We're not monsters, War Master. We only execute the people who actually participated in attacks on our civilians. Vexitar gave the orders, but he didn't personally kill anyone, so he gets to live with the consequences of his decisions. Borum sat back down. But if you personally lead an attack on our colonies, War Master, then you will personally face human justice, and human justice for the murder of civilians is death.